Right. A little bit more movement in the heavyweight division. We are seeing some noises being made about Derek Chisora. He's now in at the mandatory position of the IBF. What do you make to that?
Look, in terms of sort of rulings and rankings, it's fair. It's fair. Whether or not we think he's ready for a world title fight against Daniel Dubois, I guess, is a different conversation. But the reason he is there is because Martin Bakole versus F.A. Jagba was supposed to be the #1 contender fight. Martin Bakole then decided to fight Joseph Parker, therefore almost by default relinquishing his position as the IBF #1. Chisora was #2. He's been pushed up. And with Chisora, look, we like to go Chisora, don't we? We like to dig it in because we know the end should have been a couple of years ago and the end is closer. But coming off wins against Otto Volin and Joe Joyce, he is beating people. He's beating credible fighters. So, look, I think I wouldn't want to see it, but I respect that he's now pushed himself in that position.
Why wouldn't you want to see it?
I just don't think
As
Chisora...
a spectacle, you don't want it for Derek?
No.
You don't want it for Derek?
No. I want, quote-unquote, an easier fight for Derek's last one.
Well,
I wanted an easier fight 3 years ago, Simon. So I definitely don't want him to go in there with the form heavyweight right now in a young Daniel Dubois. I know they've got history. Obviously, Don Charles is the connection. But I almost wanted to see Chisora sail up into the sunset and fight a Francis Ngannou or maybe a Dillian White, not a young killer, if you like, in Daniel Dubois.
I think it's fair to say, though, that Chisora has backed up his argument as in not to retire, because I was one of those calling for him. I was saying, listen, I know him well, and after, I think it was the Joseph Parker defeat a few years ago now, I said to him, listen, mate, you went out on your shield. It's now time to hang up your gloves. He said, did you enjoy it? I went, loved it. He went, was you entertained? I said, yeah. And you was doing well in the fight. And he said, well, there's your answer. You've answered that. Until that doesn't happen. And he's come good recently. You know, you saw the Joe Joyce fight. So he's got himself into that mandatory position, spoke to him on Saturday, and he says, listen, mate, I'm sitting out waiting for my shot now. If anyone deserves an opportunity, and he's proved us wrong now for the last couple of years.
Sorry, Sam, there'll never be a full stop for him, though. I mean, he got this opportunity when he got the Tyson Fury fight. World title fight, stadium. It's exactly what he's saying he wants now. He's already had it. So I'm like, well,
he's earned the right to be there again. No, that's the argument.
And then it'll start again.
Boys, rather than ruminate, let's hear what Derek Chisora had himself to say on Fight Night the other day.
I'm not calling anybody out. I want my world title shot with Daniel at Wembley. I know I can sell out Wembley. I know Daniel pulled out the fight with Joseph Parker. He didn't come out and apologize. But you know what? He's learning. You know, he's a good fighter. You know, he's just learning his craft right now. So, you know, people give him a slack. He'll defend his title with me. Because I know Joseph Parker wants to fight for the WBO with Oleksandr Usyk. So, listen, I want that fight.
Listen, Derek, the heavyweight landscape right now, there's so many big fights out there. You've earned your right, by the way, to be there. You're on a run of some good form. You're #2 with the IBF, now being made mandatory challenger. If Dubois decides, or Oleksandr Usyk decides to go in against, let's say, Daniel Dubois, where does that leave yourself as in the next big name? Where are you looking to go if that fight doesn't materialise?
Listen, if that fight happens, I'll just wait for my opportunity. Because either way, listen, we want good fights. We want good business. And right now, good business is me and Daniel. Yeah? And then Joseph Parker and Oleksandr Usyk. But Usyk and Daniel Dubois will not sell out Tottenham or Wembley. I know that for a fact. Do you believe that will sell out?
No, not necessarily. So what you're saying is your next fight, if you have to be patient for it, will be a world title challenge.
Especially now they made me say yes, 100%. So I went for it.
Let's unpick some of the things that he said, right? First one, do you think that Dubois versus Chisora sells out Wembley Stadium?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
I do as well.
When we say sell out,
I just think that Derek has become a bit of a fan favourite, if I'm totally honest. And I think that him versus Daniel Dubois, who's growing as well, you've got two Brits there, world title on the line. I think it sells. Listen, they're gonna put a strong undercard on there as well. Let's have it right. It's not just going to be that. But I think it's a more sellable fight than some of the fights that are being offered.
Well, the reason why I ask is because we've seen Derek go in against Fury, and it was a 12-round beatdown, wasn't it? It wasn't a competitive fight.
Well,
Fury won it at a canter. We're now talking about Dubois being the most destructive heavyweight in the division, the form fighter. Do you really think that people are going to look at this and go, well, it's a match that's going to produce some jeopardy. We know that Derek goes into fights and he always leaves everything in the ring, and we know there's honesty, and we all know what we pay for what we get with Derek Chisora, win, lose or draw. Right? But to sell out Wembley Stadium is no tall order. And you're both saying, unequivocally, you think that Chisora versus Dubois, the undercard can't carry it, the headline carries it.
No, absolutely.
Right? The undercard helps it, right? Are you both seriously saying that you think that sells out? Because I'm sort of doubtful that it does, but I'm happy to go with you guys if you think it does.
I think definitely that it does. I believe that it warrants it and does do it. And I think that, you know, with Derek, he's that old warhorse, man, that you go like, there's still question marks over Daniel. People will still raise them question marks over, you know, his heart desire as the fight wears on, gets late. Chisora is the guy that could take him there. It's an interesting fight.
Yeah, it is.
You can't make that argument.
I'm not making an argument for beating him. Don't get me wrong.
You cannot make that argument about Daniel Dubois anymore. After the Hergovich fight,
I'm not.
And after the demolition of Anthony
not.
Joshua, you can't make that argument.
I'm not, but what I'm saying is there are people out there that will go, be interesting to see Derek take him into those penultimate rounds, 10, 11, 12,
There is
if he
a
can get there.
style that Chisora has that I wouldn't mind seeing against Dubois.
Absolutely.
Obviously, look, would I prefer that to see that style several years ago? Yes, but Dubois on the front foot is completely different from Dubois on the back foot. And Chisora can push him back. Whether or not Chisora can take that punch power is a whole different discussion.
Do you think Derek is right, because I think he is, to question, and I know that Eddie Hearn doesn't agree with me, and I'm probably sure that Frank won't agree with me, but do you think that Dubois versus Usyk sells out Wembley Stadium? Because we don't, do we?
I don't know.
We think it needs a sort of Joshua Parker undercard that will really fill the stadium out, because Joshua is still the golden goose that lays all the eggs, irrespective of whether the best fighter in the world is Usyk.
I almost feel like, and the answer probably is no, it doesn't sell out Wembley, but I do feel like we need to kind of put a lot of stock into what Usyk has done over the last few years. And because a lot of his fights have been, or the last couple of fights have been in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I don't know if we know the star power he is over here yet. But every time he's been over here, though, he's done incredible numbers. I know the dance partners have been AJ, the dance partner was Tony Bellew, the dance partners have been... But I do feel like his stock has risen so much that even if it doesn't sell out Wembley, I still think they can get 70,000 bums on seats in there. And that's kind of all you need. You don't need to max it in 90. You just need to get it past a certain number where it looks busy. And then, as you said, an undercard, a good undercard, and I do think it can
some
get
extra
there.
bums on seats.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any possibility? I mean, I think we both think that the fight that's going to get made is Dubois Usyk.
Yeah.
Right. So we're ruminating and creating content and subject matter to discuss. But do you think there's any possibility that Frank would make the Chisora versus Usyk fight, or Chisora versus Dubois fight, rather than Usyk versus Dubois?
I think it really depends on how much the WBO push their situation with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker is the WBO mandatory. I honestly think we could have a situation where Joseph Parker fights Oleksandr Usyk and Daniel Dubois fights Derek Chisora.
You do?
I really do, because I think...
But didn't we just all just say that we thought the fight was going to be Dubois versus Usyk?
I did, but boxing has a weird way of sort of throwing you one way and then going a completely different direction. And the WBO are not setting on the fact that they're going to allow Usyk to do what he wants to do. They're the only ones that seem to want to enforce their mandatory situation.
Yeah, I think hasn't that changed just recently, though, with the WBO now you know, allowing Usyk to maybe defend that title and not strip him if he decides to go in against Daniel Dubois. They won't strip him of that WBO title and allow Joseph Parker to fight whoever it would be. We've been talking about Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, those possibilities. But I think the WBO now have taken the stance to allow Usyk that little bit of freedom.
Okay, if that is the case, I absolutely despise it. I almost feel like there needs to be a situation where mandatories are enforced, regardless of what we want to see.
I'm with you.
But I don't need to see an undisputed title fight between Dubois and Usyk, because Usyk's had his undisputed already.
Yep.
Now we're just talking bonus time for Oleksandr Usyk.
Yep.
People that deserve their title shots should get their title shots.
Absolutely right. Which is the argument that's being made as a result of the Saudis and what they think is the pathway, whether it be of Dana White and whatever else.